Welcome to Writing and Graphing Inequalities tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about how can I write and graph inequalities on a number line. This is not a video about writing and graphing inequalities, linear inequalities to a graph. This is a basic 6th, 7th grade video. So let's get started. Let's look at the basics first. So first let's start talking about what is an inequality. Well, when we see the word inequality, we should notice that it has an in the front, which means not. So anytime you see the word in, it means not. Just like independent means that you're not dependent. So inequality, where equality means equal, so this means not equal. So here are all the different types of signs. We have obviously the equal sign. Anytime you have a slash through the equal sign, that means it's not equal. We have the greater than symbol, the less than symbol, the greater than or equal to, or the less than or equal to. And if you notice, the larger side is the greater than. The smaller side is the less than. So it's a good way to remember, how do I know if it's greater than or less than? So before we start graphing, we have to talk about closed circle and open circle graphs. So I have these two circles. This is my closed circle on this side, and this will be the open circle. So before we graph these on a number line, we have to understand that if I have an equal to sign, it is a closed circle because the closed circle represents that it can be that number. You could also have the greater to or equal to sign or the less than or equal to sign. All of those get closed circles, and you will see in just a second. Then we have the open circle, which means that it doesn't count that number. That number is open and is not being counted. This would be the not equal to sign, the greater than sign, or just the less than sign. Now let's apply this to a few problems. The first thing I recommend when graphing inequalities is to read the problem out loud, and also if the variable is not first in the inequality, to flip it so it is first in the inequality. Well, in this one, it is first, so we are good to go. So I'm going to read this, and we always read left to right, just like you read a book. So if I'm reading this, it says n is less than or equal to, remember that line represents equal to, 5. So I'm going to go to the number given to me, which is 5, and I have to decide, is this going to be an open circle or a closed? Well, if it has this line and says it's equal to, that means we need to do a closed circle on 5. So I'm closing it. And then it says it could be any number less than. So I'm going to draw an arrow this way. Sometimes you'll see it in books where they will draw it on the line and put the arrow on there. Either way is correct. Also, remember to check your answer. Remember your line that you just drew represents that any of these numbers could be a solution. So let's rewrite this with one of the solutions. So my line is over the number 1. So I'm going to use that. Is 1 less than or equal to 5? Yes, so my line is going the correct way. Always check your line by picking a solution to see if it makes a true inequality. So now we have, reading left to right, we have r is greater than 2. So 2 is where I'm going to put my circle. I'm going to look. Does 2 count? Could I say that 2 is greater than 2? No. So it's going to be an open circle. And it's greater than, so I need to go to greater numbers. Okay, remember what also, you can draw it on the line. Check your answer, pick a solution. Remember that line that you drew says any of these could be answers. So let's say I pick 6. So I say 6 is greater than 2. Yes, 6 is greater than 2. This line represents R, where up here, this line represented N. Let's try 2 more. Once again, we're reading from left to right. So this one says x is less than 1. So I'm going to put a circle on 1. I'm going to decide, is it open or is it closed? This one's going to be open because I cannot say that 1 is less than 1. That's not true, so I do not color it in. And then it says less than, so I'm going to pick all the numbers that are less than. Okay, remember that means that x can be any of these numbers that are underneath the line. So then we want to test it. So let's try -2. Is -2 less than 1? Yes. So I drew my line correctly. Okay, next we have n is greater than 5. So I'm going to put my circle at 5, going to decide, should I leave it open or closed? So is 5 greater than 5? No, so I'm going to leave it open, and it's going to be greater, so we're going to go to this side. Remember, you can also draw on the line if you would like. Then test a number, so 7 is greater than 5? Yes, so my line is going the right way. Oh, that should be an N. There are two more types of inequalities that you may see come up. You could have something that's similar to x is equal to 2. So I would put a circle, and remember, if I can say 2 is equal to 2, that means I need to color it in. So this one is a colored circle. And I don't need to draw a line because now I'm saying x is 2 on that number line. So there are no arrows needed in this problem. So you could also have a problem that says x is not equal to, let's say, 1. So I'm going to draw my circle around 1, but I can't say 1 is not equal to 1 because that's a true statement, or that's a false statement. So I'm going to leave it open, and you can either leave it that way, or you can say it is any number that is higher than 1 or any number that is lower than 1. So for example, I could say 3 is not equal to 1. That's a true statement. I could even say -4 is not equal to 1. Okay, so that is how you do it if it is the equal sign or the not equal to sign. Now we're going to look at writing inequality from a number line. So we're going to go backwards to what we were just doing. This time they gave us the number line. They want to know what the inequality is. Remember, you can use any variable. I will try to mix up the variables I use, but I sometimes like to stick with x, just out of habit. So in this first one, whatever the dot is how the number I'm going to use. So pick whatever variable. Let's say I pick b first. I could say b is blank to 5. So now I've got to look. My number line is going to lower numbers, so that means b has got to be less. But then I also have to look. It's an open or closed circle. It is closed, so that means it gets the equal to. So b is less than or equal to 5. So next, once again, looking where this line is, so you can pick whatever variable you want. I'm just going to use x for this one. And it's circled -1, so I'm going to put -1. It's going to lower numbers. So I'm going to say that x has to be less than -1. And I also notice it's an open circle, so there's no equal to sign. Next, we have also at -1. So let's say I use y this time. And we have -1, but this time it's going to bigger numbers. So it's going to be greater than. And it's an open circle, so I'm just going to leave it as y is greater than -1 because -1 cannot be one of my answers. Okay, let's say I have f, and it has -5 circled, so I'm going to put -5, and I notice it's going to smaller numbers. So that's going to say x is less than -5. And one way a student told me, they're like, well, less than, the arrow's going to the left. So less is left. So that might help some of you. And I'm not sure why a lot of these are going to the left. I just picked them from a worksheet. So then this next one, we could say x, and then we have the number 2. And once again, we're going to the left. So we're going to use the less than sign, and I always got to look at that circle. It's an open circle, so it's just going to be x is less than 2. And then once again, we're going to the left, so I can say x is less than -5, but this one is a closed circle, so we have to put that line underneath. Okay, now we're going to look at writing an inequality from a sentence. So we have to look at those key terms that we wrote down in our notes. Or if you aren't in my class, that you know. So it says you must be older than 13 to play in the basketball league. Well, we don't know how old someone is, so we can say A for their age. This is for letter A. So, but you have to be older than 13. So it's got to be the greater than sign, 13. Okay, it can't be equal to because it doesn't say that you can be 13. It says you have to be older than 13. Okay, next one says to use one step, your domestic letter must be under 3.5 ounces or 3 5/10 ounces. Okay, so I'm going to say X for my weight. And so I can say it has to be less than, because it has to be under 3 5/10 ounces. And C, you must be over 48 inches tall. So I'm going to say, let's use Y. Okay, over 48 inches tall. It did not say that you could be 48 inches tall. An example of when it would say the greater than sign, it says you must be 16 or older to drive a car. Then you could say that its X is greater than or equal to 16 as an example of that. I hope this video helped you. Good luck whatever you are studying. If you're in my class, I hope you're studying this for your tutorial or for your concept check tomorrow. Have a good night and go learn some math.